Beijing. On the very first day of the Fourth Plenum, someone got axed. The CCP just announced the removal of China's representative to the World Trade Organization, Li Chenggang. This wolf warrior diplomat, personally promoted by Xi Jinping in March and who only recently snarled that the US would face the fires of hell, didn't even last half a year before being kicked into the cold palace. The world is buzzing. Have the wolf warriors gone off the rails? Or is she starting to sacrifice the wolf warriors to seek conciliation? Don't miss the next drop. Subscribe and hit the bell. Bear in mind, Li Chenggang is a central figure in U.S. China trade talks. In August, U.S. Treasury Secretary Beicent publicly called him out. This person is not quite right in the head, out of control, full of threats. He even, in front of the U.S. side, phoned in order to investigate NVIDIA. That's not negotiating. That's having an episode at the table. And just a few days after this diplomatic farce, she moved. On the opening day of the Fourth Plenum, he dismissed Li Chenggang. At the same time, Treasury Secretary Beicent announced, "Next week, I will meet with He Lifeng." Coincidence? Too coincidental. On one hand, throwing off the wolf warrior. On the other, bringing in old pal He Lifeng. This is Xi's classic buck-passing diplomacy. When something blows up, behead someone first, then negotiate. What's more crucial is that behind Li Chenggang lies the line of fire in the struggle between He Lifeng and Liu He. From Wang Shouwen to Li Chenggang, one after another being swapped out, the real battlefield isn't the U.S. China negotiating table, but the CCP's internal power brawl. Next, let's take a look at who's directing this drama of a wolf warrior being unhorsed, and why it had to be staged on the very first day of the Fourth Plenum. Wolf warrior unhorsed? On October 20th, the CCP issued an official notice appointing and removing several ambassadorial posts, including China's representative to the World Trade Organization, Li Chenggang. According to the announcement, Beijing has removed Li from his posts as China's representative to the WTO and ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary, as well as deputy permanent representative to the UN office at Geneva and other international organizations in Switzerland. On the very first day of the Fourth Plenum, the CCP's top leader, Xi Jinping, dismissed wolf warrior diplomat Li Chenggang. Interesting. Poor Li Chenggang had only on March 30 first been appointed by the State Council as China's international trade representative, ministerial rank, and Vice Minister of Commerce. Some foreign media called him the most trusted deputy around Vice Premier He Lifeng. New broom, three fires. Li fancied himself well-schooled in wolf warrior tactics and was just rolling up his sleeves for a big show. He didn't expect that last week Treasury Secretary Beicent would name and shame him as schizophrenic. She likely doesn't want to butt heads with the U.S. for too long. After all, he and U.S. President Trump are about to meet during the APEC meetings in Korea. So Li had to be thrown overboard. Turns out being a wolf warrior diplomat isn't so easy. Another collision with an iron wall. She handed the blame to Li, while leaving space for the subsequent talks between Beicent and He Lifeng. Beicent said he will meet with PRC Vice Premier He Lifeng next week, expected to be in Malaysia. At a White House cabinet meeting, Beicent said he had spoken with He by phone and confirmed the meeting. The wolf warrior may be down, but first have He Lifeng keep his own people in line. If they're ill, get them treated. Still, ministerial rank perks shouldn't be cut. As long as they dare to bite on command, the CCP will keep feeding them. According to the Ministry of Commerce website, Li is still serving as Deputy Party Secretary, International Trade Representative, and Vice Minister. Li, 58, has a bachelor's in law from Peking University and a master's in EU law and economics from the University of Hamburg. He previously served as Director General of the Department of Treaty and Law at MOFCOM, Assistant Minister of Commerce, etc. Since February 2021, he had been China's permanent representative to the WTO until this removal. This broken CCP machine runs counter to universal values worldwide, and its personnel model is upside down. Wolf warrior enforcers often find their seat at the table. Wolf warrior out of control. U.S. side slams schizophrenia. On October 15th at CNBC's Invest in America forum, Beicent went hard at Li Chenggang. This person is extremely disrespectful. Once showed up in Washington uninvited, mentally unstable, out of control, rude, and overbearing. He wasn't there to convey negotiating signals, but to deliver threats. Beijing said, "This August, there was a lower-level trade official here, a bit not right mentally. I think his name is Chenggang. He threatened that if the U.S. insisted on imposing port fees on Chinese vessels, China would create chaos in the global system. That was clearly a premeditated plan on their part. But I believe the situation can still de-escalate." In diplomatic settings, negotiators rarely call out counterparts by name. Beijing broke that unwritten rule, likely because Li had cranked the wolf warrior mode way too high, coming off like an active episode that the U.S. side couldn't help but express concern about. Beijing said he doesn't believe China wants to be a chaos maker, but the CCP has a tradition of wolf warrior diplomacy. Perhaps Li fancied himself a wolf warrior. He added, "Only the Chinese side knows for sure." Reuters also reported that, according to a source who requested anonymity, Li visited Washington without an invitation, demanded high-level meetings, reiterated China's, i.e. the CCP's, false narratives, and was insulting to Americans. Li's fires of hell taunt. According to the UK's Financial Times, she recently launched comprehensive export controls on rare earths and critical minerals, shocking U.S. officials. Insiders say that during summer U.S. China trade talks, Li was aggressive and arrogant, issuing threats and foreshadowing retaliation measures in advance. The report quoted a senior U.S. official. In August, Li previewed many of the attack measures the CCP has since announced. He was cocky and provocative, warning that if things didn't go their way, the U.S. would face the fires of hell. Although Li didn't specifically mention rare earths, he said, "Our retaliation will exceed all expectations." That statement was seen as an early signal of the rare earths controls. During the talks, Li did two things that left the U.S. dumbfounded. The first we've covered. He told Beijing that if the port fee is implemented, China will cause global chaos. The second was even more outrageous. It said that at the negotiating table, Li pulled out his phone and, right in front of the U.S. delegation, ordered an antitrust investigation into NVIDIA. Even more incredible, he nudged the interpreter to repeat his words in English verbatim so the U.S. side would fully appreciate how real the theater was. If that rumor is true, this isn't a capability problem. It's an IQ short, EQ severed, and basic diplomatic sense absent. A triple car crash. Makes one wonder what he actually learned at Peking University and the University of Hamburg. The Wall Street Journal also reported that when Li went to the U.S. in August for talks, he dropped the line, "America will face the fires of hell. CCP infighting is affecting you. China talks." The Financial Times, citing U.S. officials, said recent infighting between China's Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Finance has impacted talks. The CCP's hardliners include MOFCOM and the Ministry of State Security, which wield substantial control over economic policy. Beijing has repeatedly signaled that the CCP is split into two camps, a moderate Dove faction and a hardline Hawk faction. Trump also chimed in, first saying, "Some very strange things are happening in China," and later, "Don't worry about China, everything will be fine." The highly respected President Xi is just having a bad moment, sparking speculation. In any case, with a single order from Xi, the low-level wolf warrior Li Chenggang, as Beijing called him, is off the negotiating table, suggesting a major turning point in the trade war. She still wants to shake hands and make nice with Trump. The Commerce Ministry hurried to put out the fire, stressing that rare earth export controls are not an export ban, and applications that meet requirements will be approved. Trump also loosened up for the first time recently, acknowledging that punitive tariffs of up to 100% on mainland Chinese goods are not a long-term solution. Ha Lifeng versus Lu Ha. In the last personnel swap during the trade war, Wang Shouwen was replaced by Li Chenggang. Wang may have been ousted for not being tough enough in talks, or due to high-level infighting. Wang was a longtime subordinate of former Vice Premier Lu Ha and a core member of Lu's negotiating team to the U.S. Back in 2019, at a press conference during the NPC, Wang shared an anecdote about Lu Ha and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. During talks, we had boxed lunches at noon. Vice Premier Lu and Ambassador Lighthizer both got their lunches from outside. Lu had a beef burger. Lighthizer had eggplant chicken. There was coffee and tea, but neither drank those. They both had plain water, trying to find common ground. When Wang was sidelined, rumors swirled that Liu Hesun also ran into trouble. The Financial Times, citing multiple sources, reported that Liu's son, Liu Tianren, was under investigation for alleged financial corruption. During Trump's first term, Liu He was Beijing's point man on the trade war. Liu has a master's in public administration from Harvard and is seen as a reformer within the CCP. Early on, he advised key industrial and financial reforms that once produced eye-popping growth. His experience and knowledge were widely recognized at home and abroad. Liu used to be close to Xi, but as their relationship cooled, he fully handed the reins to He Lifeng. He Lifeng, back in Fujian, was Xi's old acquaintance and subordinate, and as rumor has it, the best man at Xi's wedding. Among the many of Xi's army, he is considered especially close. Reuters once cited anonymous sources, saying He Lifeng has yet to earn his predecessor, Liu He's stature in financial markets and diplomatic circles. A diplomat who had taken part in China trade talks said, "He and Liu are not in the same league," describing he as hardline and uncompromising, and someone who won't engage in English. Another unnamed policy advisor said He Lifeng is not a technical economic expert, but a political figure. His job is to execute Xi's ideas, not to question them like Liu He might have. So what is Xi's idea for fighting the trade war? We've all seen it, a Mao-style playbook. And by now, there aren't many cards left to play. From Wang Shouwen to Li Chenggang to the current successor, Li Yongxia, they are all classic technocrats, performers tasked with reading from the script. So-called negotiating representatives neither represent themselves nor any coherent vision. They're simply the voice box of the system. At the CCP's negotiating table, the real protagonist has never been on camera.